Yeah, my name is Joar NANGO. I'm an artist and I'm also an architect. I guess the main part of this whole project is to harvest from the Yokohama region and to build based on what I've been finding here. This is my first time here now. I've been here for a week, learning about the place and also sourcing material, discarded wood or leftover materials from the region or from the museum itself, trying to sort of tap into how the flow of material works, what kind of material is considered to be valuable, and what kind of material is not valuable. For me, coming from a background as a Sami person, part of an indigenous group in northern Europe, it's very important for me to bring some of these values and this cultural or maybe traditional knowledge that I have with me from back home. And one of those things is exactly the way you work with materials and the way you kind of think creatively with whatever type of material you have at hand. There's a strong connection to landscape and to the land, to be indigenous and to be Sami. And I think that way of positioning ourselves as human beings is a really, really important thing to remember. And I think that so many of modern societies with this urbanism and these skyscrapers that you have here in Yokohama is in so many ways removing us away from this way of being in the world, from this way of listening to nature, the wind, the weather, the climate, and the material world. So for me, that value is a really, really important thing to bring into this project and to suggest for an audience and to also open up questions and conversation around. I think that distance between Sapmi and Yokohama is very, very huge, not only in time zones and travel and number of airplanes, but also in terms of culture. And I think a lot of it has to do with the urbanity and rurality. So for me, it is that has been sort of a challenge in a way, the distance, but also a source of inspiration, because I think once you start looking into this environment, there's also a lot of universal similarities in a way, even if it's different. For example, like I've been particularly interested in how the Japanese architecture utilized the floor, how the sitting on the floor and how the sort of lack of furniture has a strong historical tradition here. It's a different way of sort of moving and relating to the floor, which is very, very similar to the way we use our traditional structures back home, where we also don't have furniture. We have a very, very soft layered floor with reindeer skins, with very, very soft, nice, fresh smelling branches underneath this reindeer skin, which is the area where we sit, where we sleep, where we work, where we spend our time in our very traditional architecture. And that way of sort of sitting in a space, sitting on your knees and sort of working and sleeping and not having the furniture, it creates a different perspective, literally, on the world, where you sit on your knee and where things are lower and you're closer to the ground. And I think that for me, in a sort of poetic sense, has become a very sort of important part of this project. And I think also me working in the Grand Hall here in the museum space is also an interesting space to look at in that relation, because there are many levels. It's a huge space, but it's packed with all these different levels and these different sort of sightlines to see the whole space from. For me, as a designer, as an artist, and as an architect, I always find most excitement when things start to get very, very complex. And there's two places to find that. One is in nature, where things are, out of our hand. It's not us controlling it. And the other one is in the very, very, very big urban city centers like Shibuya, 12 o'clock Saturday night, which is it's an experience that I've never had before, visiting these type of spaces where there's so much bustling and so many layers of activities and flickering lights and human interactions in an extreme sort of urban way, which for me is it has that similar type of dynamic energy, in the same way as I feel towards having an experience in nature. There's something that is like it's vibrant in the way it sort of inspires me or makes me present. The moment when I truly, as a maker, builder, artist, designer, truly feel alive is when I lose, in some sense, start creating something, but also losing control over it. So there's a certain sense of relationship to that, to what I just said about complexity. So there's this feeling of being creative and being in the situation, working with material and contexts, that is always the most rewarding and makes me feel most alive, is when it sort of starts becoming bigger than myself and my own creativity, and I can start feeling truly sort of energized and alive through it. And I think it very often also comes when I collaborate with people. So working with the process where not only me owns or infuses the creative process, but other people also, and that other people can share ownership of it. But I think for me, I've always been interested in music, and playing a little bit, but mostly listening to music. And after a while, as a teenager, I felt a kind of attraction to hip hop culture and street culture. So I was doing graffiti, and I was in very, very many of those years that I dedicated myself to the hip hop culture. As an indigenous person, as a hip hop musician, it's important to think about the cultural history of hip hop, where it comes from. It is really a tool for resistance, and I think I learned a lot from those years as a teenager, choosing cultural platforms and just being able to think critically and independently. And then the other thing that I parallel to always being, interested in street culture, I was grown up in nature. I was grown up in a place where nature is very close to us, and I've been outdoors a lot. And being, Sami and indigenous, and also Norwegian, the closeness we have to that kind of particular bit extreme landscape, it gives you another sense of connection to nature. So outdoors life, fishing and hunting and skiing and just sort of being outdoors has something that I also did a lot in my teenage years. It's something that's very existential to me, and connects me to not only the landscape but also to my ancestors through the landscape, because I know that they have been there doing exactly the same thing, and the fish still looks the same. I think for me it's important to um, suggest other ways of being aware in society, to suggest another way of, or suggest a position that's more than being a consumerist, for example. I think it's important to uh, keep remind people of the importance of listening to your surroundings, listening in a metaphorical sense, meaning to stay aware, to let the context, the nature, the world around you find its voice and let it reach deep inside of yourself. So for me, suggesting a more organic, chaotic, improvised way of staying sensitive, of being in the world, is one of the messages. And I think that extends also to a very concrete political context of which I'm speaking from, which is as a Sami person, as an indigenous person, representing a culture that's colonized in the northern Europe, where our land is still being colonized and taken from us on a daily basis. We still have to fight for every single piece of land that the reindeer herding culture is using. I think that also connects to the same. I think we are forgetting to listen to the forces that are, more quiet or more invisible in the landscape. And our indigenous cultures are, in very many cases, sadly enough, almost too connected to nature. They're too disconcerted about creating monuments or skyscrapers or economical revenues. And for a sad reason, that means that they are neglected, forgotten, abused. And that's a tragedy. So I guess the way I work as an artist, in so many ways, try to fill that gap. Tries to create or suggest another more sensitive way of thinking about the material world around us, and using the sort of everyday material that surrounds us as a point of departure for a more sensitive approach to the world and the nature that gave us and still gives us life.